to do that. We're going to ask the first cousins to talk about their family. And so we'll do it in the order, and that was with Uncle Art, my dad, Aunt Harriet, Aunt Annie, Aunt Florence, Uncle Jack, and Aunt Louise. Before I do that, though, I was looking through some things, and I found a letter that Aunt Louise wrote. And forgive me for reading this, but I'm going to do that because it sets the stage for the Beeman reunion. Aunt Louise wrote this. She didn't have the date, but here's how it goes. James Beeman was born in Canandaigua, New York in 1833. Now the neat thing about that is there was another Beeman born in 1933, and that was me 100 years later. After serving in the Civil War, he came to Michigan and then Kansas, where he farmed. Before 1869, he made several trips to the west with Bill Cody to hunt buffalo for the railroad. Once he was forced to hide in a swamp for 3 days from hostile Indians. I know part of the family now lives in Elbert, and the story that I had heard about James Beeman was it wasn't a swamp, but they had him, the Indians had him up in one of the canyons over there, just somewhere fairly close to Elbert. And Grandma Beeman told me this story, that what he did, the Indians knew they had him, and he had 3 horses, and he did a very ingenious thing. There was a little stream went down out of that canyon, and during the night, he got under the water, breathed through a straw, or not a straw, but a stem or some kind, under the bank, and the next morning when the Indians went to get him, his horses were there, but he was gone. And so Aunt Louise thought it was a swamp, I thought it was a creek. Now he returned to Wilson County, Kansas. He resumed farming and married Keziah Jane Brady in 1869. He longed for the hills of Colorado and felt it would benefit his health, so in 1876 they sold the farm and packed a covered wagon with their belongings. Among their possessions was a rocker. Rockers removed, small handmade chest, large chest, and a beautiful handpiece and hand-stitched quilts. And you can all remember Grandma Beeman's desire and love for quilts. These are family treasures today. With her 3 children, that was Walter, Myrtle, and Charles, they came to Colorado. They bought a farm from Jonathan House, just out of the town of Plum, which became Sedalia in 1883. Walnut trees from Missouri were planted along the road in front of the house. James Beeman guarded these trees with vengeance. The telephone company wanted to put a line by the street, or by the trees. James sat on the porch with his rifle across his knees, and so the line went on the other side of the road. They built a beautiful 2-storied, 8-room house, and that's the W.G. Duncan house that's still maintained and retained the house very much as it was then. How many of you have been able to go through that house? George? Wonderful. I think what I would love to do is also go through that barn. So I was going to try to make arrangements so we could do that, but I didn't get that done. It was a custom for people traveling from Denver to Colorado Springs to stable their horses at Beeman's and camp for the night. In the spring of 1878, a stranger stabled his horse, and the horse kicked James in the head. No doctor was available, so Marcus Victor, blacksmith and Civil War veteran, cared for him and saved his life. He lost his left eye. Until he recovered, his son Walter, only 8 years old, and had most of the work to do. Kizzy carried water at night from the creek to help their son Lewis, who was also helping there. Arapaho Indians would come to Plum to get their government rations. Some would stop by the Beemans and longingly stand at the door for food. In 1893, Beeman sold some of the land for a creamery. The policy was to pay the farmers after the creamery received their money. In 1905, Lou brought his bride, Harriet Davis, home to the farm. Harriet Davis, that would be our Grandma Beeman. He assumed all the work and she cooked for the hired men. James became ill and died in 1911. Tom Romney, a butcher, went from farm to farm to help butcher cattle and hogs. He'd cut up meat for the Beemans, render the lard, make sausage, smoke hams, and put the meat into a brine. They'd wrap hams in cloth and paper and bury them in the grain bins to keep them from flies. As Lou's sons, Art and George, grew, they worked also. One day, George and his cousin Elsie took the milk to the creamery and got a tank full of whey for the hogs. The cork came out, spilling the whey. Taking turns, they ran behind the tank, holding fingers in the hole. The sight of the whey spattered Elsie. Turning behind the cart wasn't pleasing to her mother and grandmother. Lou and Harriet belonged to the old Oddfellows, the Rebecca, the Sunflower Grange, and were active in community affairs. And if you recall, that Grandma Beeman remained active with the fire department all those years. The social highlight of the year was the Thanksgiving Oddfellows Ball and Dinner. At first, the ball was held in Manhart's Hall, the dinner in Woodman Hall. I don't know where Woodman Hall was. Later, George Manhart added a dining room. Seeley Sturdivant, Castle Rock Ford dealer, would store Fords at the different farms, knowing the farm would eventually drive the car and buy it. That'd be a pretty good deal today, wouldn't it? Lou bought a Ford in 1917. The farm was sold in the spring of 1918 to the W.G. Duncans. Kizzy moved into the home in Sedalia. Lou and Harriet moved to the Overstreet Ranch on Jackson Creek with their 5 children. Twins, Jack and Louise, were welcomed November 6, 1919. After 3 frustrating years, they turned the ranch back and moved to Sedalia. Kizzy fell ill in 1922 and broke her hip, becoming bedridden for 3 years. In 1923, Myrtle Kingsley came to her mother's to be cared for also, as she had a terminal illness. Harriet cared for them during the day, Lou at night. Myrtle died January 1924. Lou caught a cold at that time, which weakened his system, and he died from pneumonia on April 15, 1924, and left Grandma Beeman with the 7 siblings. And that's the reason that Uncle Art and my dad didn't get to go to school. My dad didn't get to finish the 8th grade because he needed to stay home and help his mother. He left his wife, Harriet, children, Arthur, George, Harriet, Annie, Florence, Jack, and Louise, and his mother, Kizzy. Kizzy died May 6, 1925, outliving all her family. The Beemans were among the early families of Sedalia, and Harriet and her family are still an integral part of the community. Aunt Louise. So what we would like to do today is give some brief introductions, so to speak, and here's how we thought we would do it, and then we will eat after that. We'll start down the line, as you just heard me read the names of the children, and we're going to start down with the cousins that are the children of the people. So before I do that, however, and at this stage of the game, I want